Now, you can talk in circles all you want around that. But after you see it, straight on, what are you going to tell me? That it doesn't work? I've been seeing it for 38 years in my work. 38 years. The sickest people who have faded, we put them on the diet, and we see them come back to life. All of us who live this way do not age like the rest of the population. Why? Are we exceptions? No. The population's an exception. You're killing yourself. You're literally forcing decades sooner aging. That's what's happening. And most so-called health food today is a bunch of moderate baloney. It has nothing to do with health food. We take people, when they're guests at Hippocrates, out to an excellent health store and show them that 85% of what's there is harmful for you to eat. Just as an example to you. When you get into a health store, is the produce section good enough? No. And I'll tell you why. Because we have known now for a solid period of time, when you pick a vegetable or a fruit in California and ship it to New York from November until May, by the time you consume it, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, there is little to no what? Electromagnetic frequency. That's it. Now you may have a little bit of vitamins, a little bit of protein, a little bit of minerals left, but again, that's the old paradigm. Your objective, my objective, to stay long living and healthy and to eliminate diseases in our body is to burn them out with electric. And you are not going to get electric from organic vegetables shipped here and eaten 3 weeks later. Period. I don't care what anyone tells you. That's why the natural hygiene diet has literally died, and people who still talk about it should die also, because it kills you. It's not enough nutrition. What kind of living food versus raw food can one get in their house 12 months a year, no matter where you are on the planet? Sprouts. Sprouts. Now the good news is, when I've been brought into developing countries where people have no money, don't tell me you don't have money. You paid to get in here today. You come here to eat. You think you don't have money. I'll take you on a trip with me to Haiti. I'll take you on a trip to Calcutta. You shut your mouth permanently like I learned to do. Bottom line is, when I go to those countries, I'm very happy to be able to tell them, for seeds that you pay 5 and 10 cents a pound for, we can grow 10 pounds of food. Now listen to what I'm telling you. Not only can we grow 10 pounds of food from every 1 pound of seed, it happens to be 10 to 30 times more nutritious than the best organic vegetable that you grow, pick, and eat on the spot. Now I'll repeat that so you get a little bit what I'm saying. When you grow sprouts, this happens to be one example of sprouts. Wheatgrass is one example of sprouts. Pea greens are one example of sprouts. These are 30 times what you've just been showing here, 30 times more nutritious than the best organic vegetable that you grew in your garden in July here. If you take an average sprout, like a clover sprout, an onion sprout, they are about 10 times more nutritious. Now, do you understand what I'm saying to you? Not 10%. 1 time, 2 times, 30 times more nutritious. So because we have 51 years of clinical research on hundreds of thousands of human beings. And there's nobody in the world who does that like us. We have Dr. Valerie Hunt, who's on our team, who's the top bioenergetic doctor for the last 60 years. That's how we know it. And that's what I've just explained to you. Now, bottom line is, if you're going to bother to open your mouth and eat something, what should you then be leaning towards? Sprouts. Now, there are other foods that you can collect, and they maintain, because of their cellular structure, a very high frequency. Anyone know what those foods are? Sea vegetables. Sea vegetables. Sea vegetables are the second food that ever grew, the second plant that ever grew on this earth. That is number 2. So inherently, they have a cell structure that has the ability to hold the nutrients and hold the frequency. When my wife and I were brought to Russia after Chernobyl, we were extremely effective on using sea vegetables and the very first food that ever came, which is freshwater algae. We'll speak about that in a minute, to remove radioactivity from the human body. Now, how these freshwater algae and seawater algae are so effective on removing the radioactivity is also a renegade frequency. Do you follow that? It's a bad frequency for your body. That's why it gives you cancer. That's why it causes problems. Whereas this biologically proper sea vegetable literally resonates with your body, functions with your body, and takes away the abnormality of radiation and other abnormal frequencies. Abnormal frequencies like living in Queens. And I'm not joking. You lived up in the mountainside somewhere in Vermont or out in Colorado, we wouldn't deal with that crap. You'd just be creating your own radioactive pollution. But when you're in the middle of a city with 25 million people in the local area here, everyone using cell phones, everyone watching television, everyone using computers, you're being zapped to the point we now have the first study when Giuliani was president. When Giuliani was mayor here, he allowed the cell phone companies, and it wasn't him, inevitably every mayor would have done this, to put a tower every 2 streets in Manhattan. The first studies have now come to show there's been a cancer increase of brain and liver cancer at 17.5%. Since that's been fully employed now for the last 6 or 7 years. Just to give an example. So all of us would do very good by taking what? Okay. So not only high frequency sprouts that you grow for pennies in your house, whole questions to the end, but also high frequency sea vegetables. What kind of sea vegetables? Number one, when we eat sea vegetables, we should wash off the salt. You don't want all of that sodium chloride. Now I know in the field of living food there's a lot of nice, do-good people writing books that tell you how wonderful sodium is. I'm a scientist, I'm going to now tell you the facts about it. All of these sodiums that you hear about, be it Celtic salt, be it crystal salt that some guru owned over in the caves of Nova Scotia, I don't know what the hell they're talking about, be it some mystical salt they got in Russia in some cave, if I bring it into a laboratory, all of it comes down to sodium chloride. Period. Now, the only debate may be, does this sodium chloride have a little bit more minerals floating around on top of it? But it's all sodium chloride. For the same reason that we've been told for several generations not to eat sodium chloride, I will repeat, I totally agree with it, and I've worked with hundreds of thousands of people over 38 years, and I now have absolute proof that what they're talking about is proper. If you had an open wound, and we all surrounded you, and we were to get New Age, Ohm-over crystal salt, or whatever the hell it was, and stick it in your open wound, you would see that wound close. Would you not? It would be very painful. What would happen if I take that sodium chloride and stick it down my throat, and I have arteries that are already partly clogged? Oh, does that sound new? And now, something that's half the size or a third of the size it ought to be, is it not going to contract that? That's how, by the way, we get something called high blood pressure when we eat sodium. Pretty simple, isn't it? All sodium chloride does that. So wash the salt off it. I hate it wet, so we then throw it in a dehydrator. Takes nothing to do this. And re-dry it, and we can eat anything from kelp to dulse to arami to haziki to green algae, etc., etc., etc.